Good to see you again.
Oh,
Always good to see your waterfall. Beautiful place.
no, it's a fake background.
Still very soothing. It's a great fake background.
I think it's the best I've ever seen. Um, I'm going to share a link within the chat. This is our webinar board for today. So this is, as I think everybody here, if you don't know, this is our collaborative board that we can, you can write things in, you can participate. We will be using it a bit for this call. So let's see. I'll just put the link in the chat. If you don't have access to it, just drop your email well, actually, first make sure you have an account, and then we'll drop that link in the chat too, and then put your email in the chat, and we'll add you to this board. So this is this is for today. So one of the ways that we use boards, for those of you who haven't seen this kind of application, we often use STS within a meeting. So like we have our agenda, we have maybe the purpose, what we're going to make sure we're going to cover, and then as we go along, go through our agenda, we can create new lists, just like I'm doing here, just selecting a list, going to add list, and create a new one, and say maybe this is going to become our plan. And so as we start to interact with each other and with AI, as you see here is our chat GPT standard, which is just basic 4.0. But we can bring in, say, a strategy officer during the call, or we can bring in, say, a finance officer or chief AI officer, and bring that expertise to bear within. So we'll use it a bit here as Francis is going to go through team alignment and planning, as after we get through our welcome here, and maybe some updates from San Francisco from your time there, Francis. And we'll get into then some other use cases from you. So if there are some certain things that you're working on that you need help with, this is your time. And there's Q&A is really throughout the whole thing. So just interrupt us anytime if you have any questions, you don't understand something we're talking about, you want to go deeper into a subject, really just interrupt at any time, raise your hand, unmute yourself and speak up. And we'd love to, basically bring you into the conversation, because this time is really for you. And then we'll wrap and talk about the next steps after that. So one thing I didn't do was introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ben Clayton. I am in Montreal. I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee, but came here several years ago, fell in love with the city and the tech scene here. But I'm Chief Engagement Officer with STS. Met Francis just just about 2 years ago, as I was really looking for good AI tools to build solutions with to solve problems. And when I met Francis, I knew I'd found something here. So, Francis, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll introduce the team here, kind of go around the horn a little bit.
Sure. So my name is Francis Dion. I'm CEO and how should I put it? The original founder of STS. So happy to have been joined by Ben 2 years ago and Priya a few weeks later uh, in steps. Uh, my background is technology, IT specifically. I've been involved in multiple startups in my career, but started really doing AI work even as a teenager some 40 years ago. And really excited about what we're building at STS and the community that we're building around it, and all the great minds that seems to think that thinking is still important in this world.
Very important. With that being said, I'm Priya. I'm the CRO at Strategic Thinking Systems. I have a PhD in industrial organizational psychology, background in information sciences and technology, and focusing on some of the decision-making frameworks, personas in the background, and bias. I think that's all I'll say for now.
Thanks, Priya.
Well, awesome. Thank
Oh,
you.
you joined as an advisor many moons ago. You mind
Many
just
moons ago. Yes, I've been around since very much close to the beginning of STS, and I'm a serial CEO who's now focusing primarily on XR, virtual and augmented reality, mixed reality, and immersive learning and training.
great. Thanks, Paul. And Dale, do you mind saying a quick word?
Yeah, great. I'm also a PhD in psychology and organization development. I've worked with major Fortune 500 companies like Oracle and Advanced Micro Devices in organization development. I'm also a professor of psychology and positive psychology for MBA students, and I've been loosely associated with STS for about a year and a half now, I guess, and advise and consult and play with the whole gang. So very excited about um, learning and strategy and uh, new ventures as well. So it's great to be here with everybody.
Thank you, Dale. And Charlie, I'd love to just because you're going to be hosting, well, actually going to be sitting in the hot seat, if you will, in a couple of weeks. So Charlie started using STS not too long ago, but started to find real value from in your field with project management specifically. So do you mind just saying a quick word about you and then
Sure.
basically an introduction of what you'll be doing in a couple of weeks?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Charlie Slavin. My background is accounting and finance, and then 20 years in computer science, and then change management. But I've been practicing project management for probably, I hate to say it, but about 50 years. And I've been the president of the local chapter in Southwest Ohio many times over the last 25 years. I've I'll be speaking on project management from the beginning, the initiation phase, which is where you start your chartering activities. And Priya and I got introduced about, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months ago when I was active in the AI working group, and I was running a big event. We call it a summit. We had about 220 people there, and we did a workshop in front of all those project managers. And we're going to carry it on. In fact, tonight I've got one of my colleagues is doing a series of 6 classes in AI. He's getting a PhD in AI, and he and I have been friends for at least 10 years because I did some work down at Great American Insurance. So we're going to start down the journey of chartering, and then we'll start working on planning. And unfortunately, I've got to split here in about 15, 20 minutes. I've got a networking group. And then again, this evening, we've got an AI teaching session from Mike Lively on AI, and I've been attending that. So is that enough of background and introduction there, Ben?
That's great. Thank you, Charlie. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to having you on in a couple of weeks and working with you live on this call. So
Yes.
thank you for offering that. And that's something that we're starting to do now. Last week we had another new user, David, come on and give his talk about his use case with STS, which was his go-to-market strategy. And so this is a series that we'll be doing maybe roughly every 2 weeks or so. Bringing in specific use cases from users so everybody can start to learn from each other and see how we're using the tool. Okay, with that, thank you, everyone. Francis, I'd love to hand it back to you. So maybe a little bit of background about STS and how you got started, and then we'll go into the content for today.
Yes, and pretty briefly, essentially, I was dreaming of a tool like STS probably all my life, but decided that we were about ready to have the kind of AI that would support that dream in really 2020, so 5 years ago. And so I started working on the initial concept with the help of Paul and a few others. And then ChatGPT arrived, as we all saw, and then I knew this is exactly what I was anticipating. So I was 2 years early, or just in time, depending on how you look at it. And really the idea, the main idea behind STS is really twofold. One, um, the world in which we are operating is ever more complex, and we need whatever help our minds need, whatever help we can give it to grasp what's going on and organize our thought and make sure that we don't lose track of what's important and accomplish and achieve our goals. So that was one, and then the other one is I also realized that even when you're working with group of very talented, very smart people, it's very easy to get off track and to whether fall into groupthink or politics or conflicts of personalities or whatnot. And so I was hoping that with the help of AI, but also with some strong ideas that certainly everyone that's been participating in this project have shared, we can help people align and bring the conversation back to something that's more grounded in what do we believe, what can we verify, what is true, and how do we proceed from wherever it is that we are as a starting point. So that was really like the two components. So helping grasp a vast amount of information and organize it in the way that's effective for people, and then also helping people get alignment. And what it turns out as we're building the tool is that when we do things that are good for people's brain, it's also good for AI brains. So one of the nicest comments I've received about STS was a couple of weeks ago when a task force, someone on the task force at a bank for implementing AI in project management, told me that she was very surprised because the questions I was asking to the AI through STS were very simple. They didn't look like very sophisticated prompt engineering type of questions, and yet I was getting very very good answers from STS, and that to me was the nicest compliment ever, because that means that when you organize the information in a way that works for you, that also helps the AI help you accomplish your goal. So I think that's kind of the gist of it.
So I think I'm just going to add a little bit to what Francis is saying. In terms of the way STS is structured, it allows you to gather information from users in lists of information, and you can have that information develop a knowledge base over time, and then you're able to access from those lists of information to organize the responses from the users. So that is the process that helps create alignment, because you're surfacing ideas from multiple individuals in a single space, and then organizing that and then getting feedback from humans through that process to say, are we all talking about the same thing, or do we think we're talking about the same thing? And there's some magic that happens when you're working in a space that allows for writing, that allows you to see where do we have alignment and where do we think we have alignment when we don't have true alignment. So just wanted to add that to what Francis was mentioning.
Well said, Priya. Very
Thanks.
Show us how that happens, right, Francis?
All right.
Really captured it.
And you're going to show us how that actually happens, right?
Yes. So I'm going to walk you through core concepts. Really, I'm not going to delve really deep into any of those components, but yes, the things I want to cover today are knowledge, context, perspectives, and workflows, which are four essential components of the value that you get and that you can create with when you use STS. I guess that's my cue to start.
Yeah, you queued yourself up perfectly.
Sometimes we need to align with ourselves as well.
Yeah, exactly. So let me share my screen. All right, can you all see the board that says knowledge, context, perspectives, and workflows?
Yes.
All right, excellent.
Yes.
So just to orient you a little bit, I'm going to go back. Here, I've created a folder called Webinar April 24. I believe that is today. And then if I go one, no, not this one. If I go one level up here from the webinar folder, here this is our generic webinar folder. So essentially, I've created a folder here for today's event. That's in addition to the board that Ben has created and has shared already. So if you from the board, if you go to the folder here, and then from the folder here, you don't have to necessarily follow with me, but if you want to, you have access to that, what I'm sharing on my screen now. All right, so there are 4 key components of the STS way of thinking, and I call them like those 4 components, like they form a framework to think, plan, and act, and really the all aspects of that are important. But the STS is not just for chatting; it's a tool to get things done and move forward with your projects. So I have created this visual here. Can you see the visual with the 2 faces?
Yes.
All right, excellent. So I've used, let me just, that, all right. So I've used the Napkin AI. So shout out for a fellow AI tool that I love using to create this. So essentially, knowledge is where information is stored for future use. Context is the immediate environment that's influencing decisions. Perspective is really the idea of collaborative insights from people and from AI. And workflows is a structured process for planning and execution. So if we were to translate that into, the similar ideas in the realm of human world, the knowledge is the equivalent of the long-term memory. And I'm shamelessly stealing from Priya. I think she's the one who came up with that analogy. So really storing information for extended period. The context is the equivalent of the short-term memory, is what is front and center when we are tackling a specific challenge. And I'll talk a little bit about what each of these elements mean. So really, like right-hand side and left-hand side here are just like two sides of the same coins, right? So perspective is the concept that when you add diversity to your thinking, to your conversations, to your discussion, it does a number of things. One of them is it reduces risks of being blindsided, of going into groupthink, and it also, I believe, it also unlocks the creativity potential of your team, because then you get exposed to different perspective, and there's a couple of points I will make also shortly about that diversity. And then workflows really is how do we go from just talking about stuff to making decisions and moving forward. And again, this is one of the key area where Priya is always pushing on us to make sure that that whenever we use the tool, whenever we do with the tool, like we always like need to go to an actual decision. Who's going to do what and when is it going to be done? So again, like going not just for chatting, but also for, in the end, we need a plan, we need the decisions, and we need to move forward. And I see Ben smiling and
Yes, this is why I like the tool to begin with as well, is that it was kind of moving from just chatting and going back and forth between, say, ChatGPT and me, to actually being able to spread things out into a workflow that actually led to taking action. The way you first described it, which really hooked me, was like we have a bias towards action. I was like,
exactly.
oh, great, I'm in the right place.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple of comments I want to make about these four categories here, and again, like the two sides are just different ways of looking at this at the same idea. So the knowledge part, the long-term memory, I've heard many times people say that if you give everything to the AI, it will know everything and it will solve everything, and we all know that's not the case. So structure does matter, focus does matter, and so really, in my opinion, having highly curated content that you selectively share with the AI is something that is just as important for the AI performance as it is for you. A good example of that is, I don't know if I've seen the new feature, like if you've been using ChatGPT for a while, you can now ask it what do you think of me, right? So essentially, ChatGPT has made up an opinion of who you are based on the questions that you asked of it. And when you think about that, you really like you have no control over what goes into that. Yes, it's based on the interactions it had with you, but in my case, he thinks that I'm a very funny person because I use it all the time to create funny images for my friends. But that's probably not 5%. I'm not funny more than 5% of the time, right? But based on my interactions with it, it thinks that I am a very funny person, right? So again, it's just uh, having like understanding what the AI sees and having control over it and being able to curate it, I think makes a big difference. When we talked about context, it's even more important. Like we've all had that experience where you start a chat with the AI, and the longer the chat goes, the more confused the AI becomes because it cannot understand what the part of that conversation that is no longer relevant. So when when you want to move to some different aspect of what you're working on, the AI and ChatGPT and all of the similar chat interfaces get thoroughly confused. And again, the longer the conversation, the more confused they get. So we'll see how with STS you can very precisely curate what it is that when you ask a very pointed question, you want the answer to be based on a very specific context, and that's what we provide here.
So I'm going to add a little bit, Francis. So you can imagine, let's say you've worked 5 jobs over the last 10 years, and you have context of all 5 of those jobs in ChatGPT, and you ask ChatGPT a question, it's going to bring up the history of all 5 jobs. And maybe the first 2 jobs you worked as a waiter and you worked, selling popcorn at a movie theater. Uh, that's no longer relevant to your life. ChatGPT will not filter that out. STS will help you filter that out and focus on the skills that are relevant to what you're trying to create in the future.
And I think you, Priya, and really like those two elements of long-term, short-term memory or knowledge and context are really that's one of the key differentiator because at the end of the day, STS is applied AI, which is a way of saying that like we are LLM agnostic. We can work with ChatGPT, with Claude, with whatever else. But really, what's core to the vision of STS is that ability to structure and organize knowledge and context. Now, on the topic of perspective and diversity, one of the things that I've been repeating over and over again is that today's LLM are always roughly 80% correct, give or take a few percentage points. And even the more like deep search engines are slightly better simply because behind the scene, the vendors are asking the same question 10 times, and then they're trying to figure out which one of those 10 answers is the most likely to be the correct one. But it still get you like maybe in the realm of 85%, maybe 90% correct, but never more than that, which is a big problem if you're building a system that has life impacting consequences for people that think say insurance claims or medical diagnosis. But most of the time when you are brainstorming mode, which is really the focus of STS is the early stages of launching a project, of thinking about the strategy or the way forward for a company or for or trying to imagine what the initiative should be about. In that type of scenario, actually having some ideas that are a little bit off, that are a bit on, from the left side, is actually not bad at all, because these ideas are surfaced, presented to the users, to you, to your team, and then you can even a bad idea can actually trigger a discussion that leads to a very good idea in the end. So I think having that diversity of opinion is a great boost. Very concrete example. Let's say you're doing a project, you're working in a large corporation, and then the head of legal is not available to participate in one of your meetings. Well, you can ask the AI, take the perspective of legal compliance or risk in for that meeting, and then provide a perspective that might otherwise be missing because you could not have the full roster of participants in your meeting. And then back to the action. Again, one example I've used a couple of times is that if you ask your ChatGPT or any other AI, what is, let's say, a B2B, which is business to business, they'll have a perfect definition. But if you ask it, decide which should be best for my business, it will give you an answer, but an answer what will be like disconnected from the reality of your team or your investors, of everything. And it's not just about the knowledge that the AI has access to, but the decision of going business to consumer versus business to business is a very personal decision for a business or for a group of people. And the people impacted and involved in that decision and in implementing it, they need to be part of the process of making the plan, of taking that, of choosing one path versus another, and also understand when that decision needs to be reconsidered. So again, action is not just about a to-do list, but it's also about the process of getting it to that alignment where everyone understands why we're making that decision and what needs to happen in order for us as a group to be able to move forward. Any question about that before I go into more concrete examples of what I mean by all that? All right, so let me go back to the board here. So the first two lists that I have here, so STS and I call it humans, is really just the two faces that I was showing a minute ago. If you go through that board, you'll see here the two heads, and if you click on that clipper icon here, you will get that document that I've just shared. So that image here is through that link here if you want to have access to it after the call, after the webinar. Now I want to go a little bit through how to and best practices. So how is that implemented? What does that mean in the context of STS? So I'll start with knowledge. So typically you would want to put what is the constant, what is like more like reference material. You would want that put into separate boards for a number of reasons. One of them is that oftentimes it's a substantial amount of content. So you don't want to clutter the interface that you're working with. So it's good to have it referenced, but kind of out of sight. And also it's easier if you have the same content that you need over and over again, put it in a centralized location and then access it from a number of locations. So what do I do by knowledge? And it can mean a number of things. So let me just click here. Here I have created, here is the same clippy trombone icon. So I'm going to just click here And I just created this sample knowledge base for Sustainable Development Goals. So that's the United Nations, and have listed here the 17 SDGs. So just an example, right? It could be the policies that are effective at your organizations. It could be collections of past projects. It could be responses from a survey of employees or stakeholders or customers that you've created. So it could be all kind of information. And now let me go back to my original board. Now that I've created that board, what I can do is I can click here, that button on here that says ChatGPT standard is actually one of the perspectives, and I'll go over that. But what I want to show is that here I can add another board for additional context. Right. So when I click here and I go to my webinar folder and my April 24th folder, and here is my AAA sample knowledge base, right? So I can select that and confirm. And now you see that I have access to the 17 SDGs, and I can give that as an external long-term memory knowledge base for my AI. So the next question I'm asking to the AI will know about and think about the 17 SDGs.
So just to sort of reiterate a little bit about what Francis is saying is, as you work with STS, you will build multiple boards filled with knowledge related to different areas of your organization. You might have your mission, your vision, your values, your marketing strategy, your sales strategy. And the way Francis was selecting those lists from various boards, that will let you pull that information into the board that you are working in so that you can manipulate that information to achieve your result. And Francis is going to show you how to do that now, I believe.
Yes, indeed. Just before I do that, I will go through the context, which is the second card here. Usually the context is related to the task at hand. So not always, but in many cases, your context will be part of the board that you're working on. So going back here to my ChatGPT standard, these are the lists from this board. So these are the lists from my knowledge base, but these are the lists available on that board that I'm working on. And you see that I've selected the context here. So if I say, tell me about SDG 6, for example. Right now, remember that I've provided the list of the 17 SDGs. So I've not tested that, so it's no safety net here. But essentially, what I'm hoping is that it will give me an answer, but there's a twist. You see, it's giving me an answer about ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all, right? And then it tells me a whole bunch of things about that SDG number 6. But what's interesting is that it starts by addressing me by name. Well, how does it do that? It's because when I did the configuration, not only did I provide the SDGs, but also provided the context. And that context in this case is, my name is Francis. You see context. My name is Francis, and I'm the CEO of Strategic Thinking Systems. So I'm assuming there might also be something about STS somewhere in there. But you see, it's addressing me. The AI is addressing me as Francis because it's part of the narrow context that I provided it on top of the SDG information.
And if anyone didn't observe this, look at Francis's relatively, and this is actually a compliment to STS, but Francis's relatively terrible prompt.
Again, that's the beauty of STS, is because I'm telling the AI what I'm interested in for that question are the 17 SDGs and this context. Then I can ask those very simplistic type of questions, and you'll get relevant answers from that. Dale, anything to add to that?
No, I was just appreciating the simplicity and power of that statement, that even though it's a weak prompt, you can get a really good response because there's so much emphasis on how to ask the perfect prompt. This is a great anecdote to that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly,
there
exactly.
you go. Yep.
All right, so now going back to the list here of the four pillars of our framework to think, plan, and act. So there's a perspective. So one of the things is that we STS is a tool for collaboration. So one of the things that we often do when we do our own meetings, we always use STS. And sometimes when, let's say, we want to really like brainstorm on a difficult topic, like very simple example is what should be our values that we want to use to guide our strategic planning for STS. And so the way we did that, we had, I think, 6 or 7 people in a meeting. And what we did is we created a separate list for everyone to start typing and thinking about and adding what they felt were important values that they would like to be reflected in our mission and value statement. And so in SCS, like these are lists here. So essentially, I can just come here and I'm just going to add a list below, and then I could add that. Let's say this is Dale, and then this is Priya, and then I could have like as many lists as I have participants, and then everyone can work on their own. And when we did that, one of the things that we realized is that this way of working in a group fostered more diverse perspective from the people, because it's very different than going through everyone around through a round table and say, oh, anyone has anything to add, or one by one, like putting people on the spot. Some people are comfortable speaking, some are not comfortable speaking. Some people will speak over other people. I've been known to do that once or twice, apparently. But some people then like having those lists where people can essentially just like think through them by themselves and take the time to put their idea down, actually frees up or opens up the ability to contribute to various different personalities and different ways of operating. And that is, I think, an extremely powerful feature of STS. And then some people will use the AI to get more ideas. Some people will do web searches, whatnot. So it's really multi-modal perspective, and I think it's very effective. Now, STS is also about bringing AI to enrich those perspectives. And I'll go back to my contributions here. I did mention here, you see, give your AI colleague a specific expertise or responsibility. And we have this collection of like these are very similar if you worked with GPTs with an S. This is kind of similar context. These are like pre-configured AI meta prompts. So let's say if I use which one should I take? Let's say the technology officer. Right. So now I've given my AI a specific expertise or responsibility, right? And so when I save that, and Priya asked me to pass it by her, but I did not. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to ask the same question, but now instead of asking the generic AI, I'm asking an AI that has a perspective of being very focused on technology. And she did warn me that it might not work out. So tell me about SDG in the context of technological innovation, maybe. Would that work, Priya?
Oh yeah, I've got it.
And you see now that's now a question that this AI is able to recognize and work with. And then it's giving me some ideas about drones and remote sensing and data analytics and sanitation solutions, water purification, and things like that. So again, the those personalities, like the ones I've used the most often is, finance versus sales, right? Sales always want to spend more, finance wants to spend less. But the reality is that you need to spend to increase sales, so that there's a dynamic between the two that I always find interesting. And then we have some other, like for example, like the concise assistant is really similar to the ChatGPT standard, but it provides shorter answers, which is something that I personally appreciate. And then there's also the question assistant, which is pretty interesting. So if I go to the question assistant, and that's another creation of Priya, I'm going to have an even worse prompt. What about SDG 6? Right? So that's like, what kind of question is that? So I'm hoping that the question assistant will actually ask me questions. Again, no safety nets, but yes, you see, like the question assistant is not about giving me answers, but again, like those uh, those expertise and those area of focus are really meant to provide you and your team with different perspectives, different ways of thinking about things that you might not have been thinking about when if you had not used those tools.
Francis also could show for people who want to use STS, the help assistant.
Yes. I'm not going to show it in this context though, but yes, there is also the actually I'm going to use it, but here and the ask and find. When you click on the top here, ask and find, we have pre-configured four AI colleagues for you. One of them is help with STS. So for example, I can pick that one and say, I'll let's say, what are frames?
Or how to use STS.
And I almost can type. So right now it's going through an AI that's been pre-configured to know about STS and is providing us with links of where to go to find information and how to create a team, create board and folders, and using AI colleagues. So again, feel free to explore that. We'll keep improving that, but would love to have your feedback.
And then if you see the links to the right, the paper clips, if you click on those, they will take you to videos and trainings as well. I don't know where you are, Francis.
There are the paper clips here. And it brings you to the documentation page. All right. So going back to where I was, not that one, but this one. All right. So as far as workflows go, really, like there's a number of things that STS can help you do. You've heard us talk about how we use STS in meetings. There's an STS template that Priya and uh, Charlie have worked on. If you go to when you create a board, if you pick, we still have the project planning template. This is a very good example of a multi-step workflow. So when I create that board and I come here, you see that I go from the defining the organizational context, and see when I go from left to right, I go to project requirements, project plan steps, planning and execution steps, staffing and start date, risk analysis. So all of these are essentially multiple steps that feed into one another. So that's a very powerful way of structuring your work in STS, is to essentially use the visual layout. In this case, it's a right to left. You can make it top down also whichever works best. And then one thing that Priya and Charlie have done here is that they've actually added an AI colleague at every one of those steps. But sometimes what we do is we have like a list where the people like in the on the team will work, and then after that an AI that will summarize that, and then another list where we make a decision, and then another AI, so you can really organize the way the board is structured in a way that will facilitate that process. This is very different from another completely different scenario, which is I'm going to create a new board, which is looking at two different scenarios, right? So in that case, instead of going through multiple steps, I'm looking at two different scenarios. Let's say I'm a startup and maybe I have funding, maybe I don't have funding. How should I plan my marketing according to that? If I create that board and I click here, and I can here describe scenario number one. We are a well-funded startup. And here we are a bootstrapping startup.
Or a relevant question that everyone probably has on their mind at some level. What if tariffs go up?
Yeah, tariffs or no tariffs. And
Yeah.
then I can again like use the same perspective on both. So I can this one is connected to, let's say connect this one to those two scenarios, and I can ask let's say what I'll do is I will ask the finance officer how how can we manage the business? And while the finance officer thinks about that, I'm going to come here and Priya, you made them more temperamental, did you not?
No, it's some upgrade with the AI, so everything
Okay.
got very, yeah. It's not supposed to do this.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. But
Okay.
how can we grow the business maybe?
So
No,
ChatGPT.
don't worry. I'm gonna fix it. 1 second. I have to find the ones. That's why I said, okay, go ahead. It'll work now.
Okay, so you see now I've asked my question, and then for a well-funded startup or versus for a bootstrapping startup, I have different things that I can do. And then I can ask the same question. Can I use the sales officer?
I believe the sales officer works. Let me double check.
And I'm asking the same question, but different perspective, and I'm expecting I'm gonna have slightly different answers from that perspective. But again, like compared to the project planning template, which is a very like sequential steps that leads to a project plan. Here we're more looking at various scenarios based on the scenarios that have been defined here, and the expertise that I've selected for the AI. All right, so let me yes.
I just want to make sure we save enough time. We got about 10 minutes or a little bit under
Yep.
now. Just for folks that are like callers, maybe specific use cases, needs, like applications of what they've learned, and of course questions, any of this that they've seen.
I need another 2 minutes.
Okay, after that.
Right.
Questions.
Yeah, so just to wrap things up, like I was done anyway through the content I wanted to present to you. Knowledge, context, perspective, workflows. This is how we recommend that you think about how you structure your interaction with STS and how you tackle any projects or any challenge that you have in business or in life. But the one thing I wanted to talk about is what are the near future features that are coming for each of these areas. As far as the knowledge goes, right now, what you provide as knowledge is still going to be packaged into the one prompt that is being sent to the AI. Very soon, we have someone working on it right now. You will be able to, let's say you have not just one or two or 10 documents, but let's say you have thousands of pages. Let's say you have all of the projects for your organizations for the past 10 years. How do you handle that much content? So we are going to implement what is called RAG, which is Retrieval Augmented Generation. And that will also provide you with references. So when you get an answer, you'll be able to go to the actual source of, oh, there's a project that looked like the one that I'm working on. I can actually go and see the details of that project when we implement RAG and references. So very exciting new development here. As far as context, one of the things that we want to do is to give the AI colleagues more autonomy so that they can yes, there's the context that you provided, but it will also start looking at, is there something else that I can look into, including web searches, which I think is going to be a exciting new development.
I'm
In
very
terms of
excited about that.
perspectives, Dan?
Oh, I just said I'm very excited about web search.
Yes. In terms of perspectives, one thing that we are close to delivering also is the idea of having a committee of AI colleagues. So when you ask a question, instead of having, like we had a few instances where, let's say, the finance officer says, I cannot answer that question. Imagine if I ask the questions to a committee, and whichever AI is the most relevant for that questions, for that topic, is the one that get picked up to answer your question. So this will be committees. So that's also is coming soon. The idea is to make it easier so you have fewer decisions to make other than just you ask your question, and then STS will always allow you to have precise control over what happened, but will also have a bit more autonomy in suggesting or trying other things to make your life easier. And as far as workflows, it's the same thing. Let's say you started through, let's say, a project planning, very sequential process, and then you realize that you need to do a little bit more brainstorming, maybe consider various perspectives, maybe add different voices to the process. Then the STS AI will be able to suggest adjustment and then reconfigure your board automatically for you as you proceed. So these are the kind of things we're thinking about to make it the tool more fluid and more effective at helping you accomplish your goals and your objectives. And open for questions.
Excellent.
Yeah, that sounds great. Great job, Francis. I was wondering, what are the things that users have been asking for? Do you get a sense of what features they are looking for as you use this, rolling it out?
So four things roughly. One is pretty much everyone, especially in the corporate world, also in consulting, they want to be able to, once they've done their, let's say, brainstorming with their team or with a client, they want to be able to produce an asset. So like our friend Gary Boomer, for example, he's created a one-page strategy plan that goes from high-level goals to specific objectives to tasks to who's responsible and when will that be done. And there's a very specific format that he uses for that. And he loves the idea of using AI and STS to get the information out, but when it's there, like how can we transform that? And that is being released in a matter of days, if not hours. I've
That's great.
been making
Yep.
great progress on that. Conversely, everything that brings knowledge into STS, whether it's reading PDF or reading a website, So I can show you I've been doing STS. I've been doing a vibe coding hackathon last week, and this is an application that I've built in 2 hours with Jim Rupert that looks at a website, and you ask it a question, and then it gives you an answer. It gives you a relevant image from that website, and then it also gives you access to the full content. So essentially, that full content here, we can now bring that into STS, into a knowledge base board, as we discussed. So that's also something that's been asked. And then the other thing I want to mention is the idea that, oh, I was not sharing my screen, right? Let me share my screen. Here.
Just want to make sure we save time for Bob's question as well.
Yeah. So I just wanted to show you, like, this is how I got the 17 SDGs, is with the VAB coding software that I built last week, and this is another vibe coding. It's the same application that can read your STS-42 documentation side and can read the SDGs from the UN side, and then that content here, whether it's summarized or detailed content, can now be brought into a board in STS to serve as a knowledge base.
Great.
And then the other things that I mentioned, also the ability to quickly reconfigure a board, as opposed to choosing a template and then being stuck, and that the frame of that, the structure of that template, we want to make the whole experience more dynamic, more fluid, and more adaptive.
Great.
Thanks, Dale. Bob, you had a question?
I did, yeah. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for this, Francis. I guess when you were toggling between like the different personas, or the roles that you had pre-built, I guess I saw there's really two questions. One is, could you essentially just use, in some ways you're using the interface there to almost be the orchestrator, right? Like I know where to go, so I'm going to route you, right? Which could be advantageous for anyone who's built a bunch of agents, a bunch of specialized sort of agents, and but you want one on the glass. You want one sort of interaction, and then don't make me figure out, do I talk to Google? Do I talk to Alexa? Do I talk to Siri? But the other maybe different scenario is, while the CFO might have the most knowledge, I actually want to use this as an aggregation point of the collective intelligence of all of those. And then maybe there's weights associated with, to say, like, other people can weigh in, but like, I'm going to count, the peanut gallery a little bit less than, the people who are actually in the trenches every day on this subject. But it doesn't, because I think about it first of all, I have some background in that concept of, crowdsourcing and collective intelligence. So that's always at the top of mind. But the other is, how do you, I guess, let me just put it back to you. Like, how do you see that scenario, playing out? Because anytime somebody has, even in the space, directly in the space, like if you have an AI governance committee or an AI ethics committee, you purposely put people on that team. And so could you use this essentially almost as a simulation of what that representative, almost like using synthetic data?
Yeah, exactly.
Scenario.
Yeah. You got it exactly. And the idea of committees is really to have those multiple voices hashing it out together. And then once we get there, it's going to be very exciting. Like our workbench to experiment with like, how do you decide which voice gets priority, right? Is that something that the user decides ahead of time? Maybe, but maybe the AIs can discuss it between themselves. Let's say I have 5 committee member, and then each one gives their perspective and makes their case for responding to the query, and then the 5 of them vote, and then the one with the highest vote gets to answer, right? Or maybe it's all 5 gave a perspective, and then there's a 6th one that will summarize those entries. So all of these are very exciting things that will be very easy to experiment with without having to touch a single line of code, because it will only be just like how you orchestrate and organize those agents.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. I mean, there's a ton of scenarios where that would come into play. Even just, I need these 3 or 4 people, these roles to review this contract, right?
Yeah.
Or, things like that.
So, and from our present focus, you could test that out right now, where you could have those 3 or 4 roles. Say you want to implement a change management initiative. You put in your context, and then you say, what should I think about for this change management initiative? Ask that exact same question to HR, finance, tech, and you'll get a different perspective on those things that you need to think about to implement that change initiative, and you will find tremendous gaps in your knowledge. And so it's instead of, there's value in getting all of those perspectives and not necessarily weighting them, because HR is thinking about this change management initiative from the perspective of training and development and hiring and job loss. Finance is thinking about it from the perspective of cost. And then you'll have tech. What are the tech implementations and I've run it in that way, and the types of insights you get from those different perspectives, it's quite surprising and quite enlightening. So there is great value in that as well.
Yeah, I bet. All right, really interesting. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right. I think I've been quite chatty today. I think we're past the time. Ben, how do you want to proceed? Are we?
Yes, we're just over the top, which is so thanks for sticking around. And I will make this recording available on our YouTube channel, so you can review it later, because I know we did cover a lot of material, which is great. So I'll make it available once we process it. There also I just wanted to say too, I was thinking about building a template for, was it 6 thinking hats? So there's 6 different perspectives, so you're coming together on just to all of your comments that it pushes me in that direction. We're doing these webinars now every week. So it's a different topic each week. Like I mentioned at the top of the call, Charlie will be on in 2 weeks. That's May 8th. Talk specifically about how he's using it with change management and project management. But we try to bring in the news and developments that are happening not only in the world, but also on our side too. So you guys can have access to the latest features and updates, and come to actually build things with us. So we will try to save time to get specific to what it is that you're working on. But in the meantime, you can reach out to us. You have my email, at least, to ask questions if you need help. Also, you can connect with us on LinkedIn. That's helpful as well. So just as you're building your tools, your solutions, don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can to really help you flesh things out and make it really as useful as possible for you. Anything else, team? Or from you guys, Bob, JC, Paul? Awesome.
I'm good. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Enjoyed this.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. See you soon. Bye.